Good afternoon. Hello. Welcome to this week's Student Bites, your weekly source of insights into being LGBT in business and graduate recruitment. My name is George Wright, and I'm Student Engagement Lead here at myGwork, responsible for our student outreach and graduate opportunities. If you've got a question, want to talk, or just want to find out more about what we do, please don't hesitate to drop me an email, and my email will be over on the next slide. I'd also like to welcome Tyler Berklasic from IE Out and Allies, who have collaborated here with us to put this webinar on. Tyler, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, I am Tyler. I'm from IE University, and I am the president of the LGBT organization there, which is called Out and Allies. And we partner with myGwork to put on this, and yeah, looking forward to the event.
Excellent, thank you very much. And this week we are joined by Santander, the multinational commercial bank. Santander is in fact a partner of myGwork, and their job postings, events, and their company page can be found over on our network at myGwork, but there'll be more about that at the end. Before we get into our panel, however, let's take a look at this week's news. Disney has been revealed to have had a fantastic lockdown thus far, with statistics showing that the company's streaming service, Disney Plus, reached 54 million subscribers just after a month after it launched in Europe. This has come at great stress to mobile operators who are having to support the enhanced demand on their servers for data streaming. The data suggests, however, it's only going to be onwards and upwards from here for Disney. In a matter of weeks, it has managed to take up almost 2% of the market for digital streaming, which stands in comparison to Netflix, which recently reached between 7 and 10%. At this growth, which is expected to continue as market research shows almost 30% of people polled considered subscribing to Disney Plus at some point, Disney is shaping up to be a serious contender to Netflix, which has traditionally been seen as the titan of the home streaming market. Shipping firm AP Moller-Maersk claims almost 10% of its fleet has been forced to idle by the coronavirus, the highest idled capacity by the firm in over a decade. This comes as the firm, despite continuing to trade during the crisis, has failed to see an uptick in business as it reports profits for the first quarter only marginally higher than those of the first quarter last year. According to CEO Soren Skue, the firm is anticipating a 25% drop in the second quarter, but is planning contingencies to handle this effectively, such as cancelling up to 10% of all sailings across the first 6 months of the year to address the collapse in demand. This has culminated overall in a 6% drop in the share price of AP Moller-Maersk, and how the company tackles the crisis over the coming months will define its future in the post-pandemic world. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, has pledged to move the car maker's headquarters out of California in response to lockdown measures. The Alameda County Health Department blocked Tesla's plan to reopen its factory due to wider state lockdown measures enacted in response to the coronavirus, which forbid the reopening of non-essential businesses. The factory is Tesla's only US plant and produces 415,000 cars annually. In a bizarre Twitter engagement, the type which has come to typify Musk, he tweeted that Tesla will move its headquarters and operations to Texas or Nevada in response to the move. Any operations remaining in California would be contingent on how California treats the company going forward, Musk promised, amid further tweets encouraging legal action from his followers. Musk has always also made it into the news in the last month for managing to wipe $14 billion off of Tesla's value after tweeting that the share price was too high, in direct contravention of a court order preventing him from tweeting without legal approval following a similar escapade last year, which saw him fined $20 million. He has been critical of the government response to coronavirus lockdown measures, claiming the approach is fascist. Law firm Kennedy's this week announced a new graduate route to qualifying into the law firm, incorporating the new solicitor's qualifying exams, the SQE. The plan is for a 30-month graduate solicitor apprenticeship, the GSA, which will enable graduates to start earning as soon as they begin the GSA without needing to complete the legal practice course. Graduates will earn practical work experience before sitting the SQE1 and SQE2 in a move that the company has hailed as enabling them to recruit from a wider range of backgrounds. The decision to enable graduates to earn as soon as they begin, rather than needing to take the LPC first, will enable many who had previously been unable to necessarily afford the studies to follow their career aspirations without worrying about the consequences of financing. As many firms consider their graduate recruitment practices in the face of the coming changes to the qualifying routes, we expect to see many more firms begin to offer similar schemes. And finally, following from last week's news that airlines have been warned by the Competitions and Market Authority, the Civil Aviation Authority yesterday announced that airlines are legally required to issue refunds to customers who have had their flights cancelled by coronavirus within 7 days, with declarations that it may seek legal action against companies who won't comply. This comes amidst the news that the Colombian airline Avianca has filed for bankruptcy, and Virgin Atlantic is to lay off nearly 3,000 staff amid restructuring to survive the coronavirus. An estimated £7 billion worth of consumer money is said to be tied up in required refunds, and at this time it's not quite clear how airlines will find all of that and manage to survive. Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary has expressed concerns, however, that it may take up to 6 months to refund all customers, and it is not yet sure how the CAA intends to go about timetabling the expectations for refunds to be achieved. For those uninitiated, Student Bites is a weekly webinar where we talk to different inclusive companies and their staff to learn what it's like to be LGBT in the workplace and how you can get there if that's where you want to be. If you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll come to them at the end of our panel for members to discuss. Santander offer banking and financial services across the globe with almost 200,000 employees in 15,000 branches across Europe, North America, South America, and Asia. Prestigious in its brand, the company frequently features in Forbes' biggest public companies and is the 5th largest bank in Europe. We're joined today by Ryan Funnell, Director of Global Communications at Santander, and Pablo Portilla, the Global Talent Acquisition Manager. Before we get started, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. Well, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. I joined Santander back in 2007 in the UK, and have been with them really ever since. I traveled through Argentina and Mexico before coming here to the group in Spain in a global role. And I've been out at Santander pretty much that entire time, and now proud that in Spain we've started our LGBT network Embrace, which we already had in the UK and the US and now also in Brazil.
Excellent. And Pablo, if you wanted to.
Well, thanks a lot for inviting us. I'm really happy to participate here. And well, I started in Santander like 3 years ago, I think. And I mean, I've worked before. I'm from Peru, so I've been working on Latin America and in other companies. But I joined the company like it was a kind of event, a lucky event, because as much of a lot of people here in this meeting, I decided to do a master in Spain to start to reinvent my career, and I got an early career opportunity on with the company, and fortunately I was able to see a lot of areas, a lot of departments, a lot of projects, and that's the reason I decided to stay in the company and in Spain too.
Fantastic. So I guess we'll start off with a pretty straightforward question, just to sort of look at the more business side of what you do. Would you mind telling us a bit about what sort of your office life is like at Santander? Well, maybe not at the minute, but what your day-to-day is like? Should we pass that here? We'll start with Pablo, if that's all right. I'll do it like that.
Sure. Okay. I mean, how is our day-to-day in the office? I mean, right now it's kind of different because of the situation that we are living, but before the pandemic situation, I mean, I think that we are since I started at least on the teams that I worked on, I mean, I found myself in an inclusive environment. I mean, we have people from, I mean, you could say it should be weird that in a Spanish company you can find a lot of different profiles and different backgrounds, but it is. I mean, most of my partners right now, or my colleagues on the team, are from Canada, from Colombia, from Argentina. So you are working in Spain, but in a really cultural, diverse environment with a lot of projects, new exciting projects each moment. I mean, I think that in my 3 years, I have been different each month, a different project or a different thing here since I started. And I mean, fortunately, I mean, when I started there, we didn't got embraced as a network on the corporate center, but we find the support from the company and from the culture of the company to start building this network also in the corporate center. And we have been doing a lot of activities with the support of the diversity and inclusion department and even from the business divisions.
Yeah, I'd say as well, that even though we're 10 major markets and each country obviously has its different cultures and ways to approach things, we since 2015 we have a global cultural kind of aim in Santander to help people and businesses prosper and to be simple, personal, and fair in everything we do. And I find that regardless of the ways that different offices work or in different countries, that it's that kind of culture of collaboration and working together and learning from each other and from our differences, really, that is one of the things that holds us together.
Fantastic. I think actually quite nicely, Ryan, sort of you picked on this notion of sort of the inclusivity, etc. And I know you mentioned in your introduction about the LGBT network at Santander. I just wonder if you wanted to tell us a little bit more about kind of some of the work they've done and sort of where that is now as far as the company is concerned.
Sure. Well, it started really in the UK. I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago now. And the people who were in the network at the time tell me, there were 3 people in a pub garden, around the corner from the office. And fast forward in the UK today, during the month of Pride in June, it's all across our branches and ATMs, websites, and importantly, that is something that the group has gone from those 3 people in a courtyard to sort of 2,000, I think, out of 25,000 employees, 24,000 employees or so in the UK. They are taking part in something like 16 Pride parades throughout the country. So it really grew a lot, and it had great executive support to be able to do that. The US business also had started theirs and have been successful in running prides in the different areas they're located. And as Pablo said, we were able to start the group in late 2018. Start the network in the group center here in Spain. And since then, again, last year we participated in Pride in Madrid for the first time ever. It's a simple thing, but the logos on our websites and our social media handles changed, and just that visibility of a company supporting that, again, in Spain as well as globally, made a difference. And I think it also opened doors for some of the things that we're starting to achieve this year. Pablo, I don't know if you want to talk about this year.
I mean, about this, we got some achievements for on last year, and since we started the group, more people has joined. So we are starting working in new work streams. And for example, this year we are focusing a lot on updating all the policies and procedures that we have inside the bank. For example, we are already working on how to accompany, for example, all the people who is going, for example, through a transgender situation, for example. How can we give them more support than what we are currently giving them. And of course, other things that we are doing, we are organizing our event for Pride, an internal one because of this situation, to bring more visibility to all the groups inside the bank. And also one other work stream that we are having is about the equity for couples of the same sex. For example, we were discussing that today in the morning on how to make easier and give a service coming from HR and from all the businesses to give information, and not just to give all the documentation that people needs if they are going to a process where they are going to adopt or have a child, but how can we give that extra value, and how can we orientate our employees when they are facing a transition in their life, they are trying to achieve a family objective when sometimes the governments are not that ready for that.
Yeah, it's to bring some consistency to the policies and the processes behind our intention. I think because when everyone we speak to is very supportive, but you know, until the policy and the process is there, then it's difficult to manage that consistency, particularly at a global level.
Excellent. So I think, yeah, that's really great, you know, sort of hear this idea that there's this sort of company-wide push, you know, that you're really seeing about making sure that the LGBT staff are supported. And so I think that's, you know, that's really, really, really fantastic to hear. Out of curiosity, and maybe slightly off piece for the LGBT, but is this similar with other sort of diversity networks at Santander at all, do you know?
Yeah. There are 5 areas of focus for our diversity, and now you're going to test me, but I'm going to say gender, LGBT, disability, generational and cultural.
Yes, and cultural, yes.
Yeah.
Those are the 5 ones.
So our women's network is similar to Embrace in the UK, has grown immensely, about 1,600 people, I think, just in Spain alone. And big women's networks in other countries, and we're trying. The company is trying this year to join them together into a more global group. And in the other areas with disability, culture, and the other one I forget, functional.
Yes, disability.
Yes, there are work streams heading towards the same sorts of things.
Yes, I mean, if I have to add something, what is really important is that we are working in this diversity work stream on LGBTI, on gender, for example, because I mean, it's something that the company is doing, but the ones who are moving all of this are the employees. I mean, the employees are the ones who are moving all the people to worry about diversity, and the good thing is that we find all the support from the company to do these activities.
Fantastic. So I think, you know, we're really kind of getting this idea here of what an inclusive employer Santander is, why you're here, I suppose. But I just wondered if you had any tips on how graduates can find out about whether or not an employer is inclusive, and, you know, the importance of choosing an inclusive employer. Pablo, if you had any thoughts about that at all.
Okay. I mean, it's a difficult question in the sense, like, for example, I can tell you my own experience when I just started working in companies, when I finished my studies, my first experience in a company, I mean, it was weird because I've been always openly gay, for example, but with my friends, and I didn't get that issue to be commenting that or to reinforcing the message. And for example, the first time that I started working in a company, like a couple of weeks ago, I remember that some of the friends that I made there in the in the team, one of them got close to me and asked me uh, like we have one question. She told me, I mean, we've been commenting with some people if I mean about your sexual orientation. And at first I felt like, okay, this is part of my life and I'm feeling violated about that. But then I figured it out, I mean, how much time these people could have been talking about this for a matter of curiosity. I mean, there wasn't even a bad intention on that. Uh, so since then, and then I realized that a lot of things that I didn't say, maybe it was because I was unconsciously afraid of that. And I mean, then since for example, since I started working in another companies, I think that you can realize how a company can be inclusive first for what you can see on their social media channels, on their web pages. Uh, but then how is when you face, for example, a recruitment process, I mean, there is nothing wrong if you ask, if you want to find out more about the company and the culture of the company. I mean, I would recommend that if you have some doubts about the team, about the process, about the profile, you should do it. But one thing, it can be like, how is the company do it with diversity and inclusion policies? Uh, and then you can see that if the recruiters knows what to answer, and they and they have a speech about that it's aligned with the company, it's because it's something that it's in the DNA of the company. Uh, because at the end, for example, for us, uh, trying to be an inclusive company is not only in the name. So we are also training recruiters on this kind of topics and all the company. So it's a speech of all the employees. It's part of our culture and not just an statement, you know? And that's how can you find that. And then when you're working, I mean, then when I started working on other companies, I used to talk, you know, when people commented about their weekends, I could say, I mean, and I got a colleague that said that he was with her girlfriend. I was able to say that I was with my boyfriend. And then regarding the reactions, you can see how inclusive is the company. But fortunately, what I will realize is that we are the ones who feel this fear first, but then the reaction of the people is really open to that. I mean, at least I have positive experiences on that, but I know that that's not the case in all the situations.
Excellent. I don't know, Ryan, if you had anything you wanted to add to that at all.
No, much the same. It's yeah. Look below the surface. It's easy to say something. How much are they doing?
Yeah, fantastic. And it's great, you know, to hear stories of people that are able, you know, to bring their whole selves to work. And I think there's that whole idea of reaching out. And I suppose, you know, that's why we're doing things like this. So graduates can really sort of get an idea of, you know, what is going on, whether or not it's, you know, box ticker, and it's a genuine sort of belief. If you don't mind, I'm going to turn sort of the topic of the panel now slightly towards the graduate schemes, at Santander, and sort of how graduates can come to work at the company. So I don't know if one of you would like to just tell us about sort of routes into the company or graduate schemes that Santander have.
Okay, I think that's a question for me. So, okay, I mean, during this situation, everything is changing. But I think that fortunately we are a really big group. So, I mean, we always say that one of our claims as a company is to help millions of people prosper and realize their dreams. So now more than ever, for us, it's important to give professional opportunities to people because we know it's what we are going to need to keep growing as a society after this situation is over. So we are still, for example, at the corporate center, we are, we move, I mean, people were doing their internship programs, and we moved these internship programs into a digital format. So right now we have in the group more than 750 people doing their digital internship programs, I mean, from home. And for example, we are currently recruiting people from our internship programs that is called the Start, that is going to start on September. I mean, we are still planning to do it. We are doing all the recruitment process in our career sites. Our recruiters are calling people to join them on this process. And I mean, right now we are thinking that the situation is going to be over before that. So the program is going to be still in a presential mode. But if this keeps going, we are going to find a way to 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 do it in a digital way, as we are doing with the people who is currently doing their internships. And for example, we were launching in Spain a corporate and investment banking program that, I mean, people was recruiting candidates in the middle of this situation, because, I mean, we are not stopping our work. We still need people to support us on our teams. And right now, another program that we have launched, it's Tech Up, that it's a project focused for digital profiles that is going to start on October. We are recruiting, I think, 50 people. And also, we are doing all the recruitment in a digital way. And I mean, we know that these people is going to start if even if this situation doesn't change. And we still are, I mean, we are still working on the projects and the campaigns for next year. So, I mean, and that's happening in some regions. I mean, then the reality on each market is going to be different. Some countries have decelerated their recruitment, but at the end, we are projecting ourselves for the future. So, I mean, okay, maybe we are not recruiting as much as before, but we are still doing it because we still need talent.
Fantastic. Yeah, so that premise, I said you're right. Everything is kind of changing at the minute, and so sort of keeping that awareness is great. Out of curiosity, to both of you now, I think, what do you think would make the ideal candidate for someone that wants to apply for a job at Santander? What really is the company looking for, culturally, academically, Ryan, perhaps if you wanted to, start on that.
Sure. Well, so a customer focus is something we talk about all the time, and thinking about who we're doing this for. As I mentioned earlier, with our culture, we're talking about helping people and businesses to prosper, and really how then can the work that you're doing, regardless of what area you're in, impact that end result. So you don't have to be selling a mortgage to a customer and giving them the house that they want to buy. You don't need to be that person doing the sale. To create the mortgage, you need marketing people and risk people and finance people and all the other elements that go into creating that. And so I think that customer focus is important, and that links as well to this idea of why we're doing things in the case of being simple, personal, and fair. Making things easier to access, not just for our customers, but also making it easier between colleagues, making it easier between countries. Like, why make things hard for ourselves as well? And thinking about those different stakeholders as we work. And the other thing I would say for Santander, Pablo and I have both kind of spoken about this before, is that things move so quickly. It's part of the nature of Santander, and that and so I think looking for people who have that kind of ambition, who like a challenge, who appreciate that, finding the information that they need to be able to complete and continue something. You really need those kinds of qualities to be super successful, because it's fun if you're into that. But if you're not, I mean, I imagine it could be quite hard.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have anything you wanted to add to that at all, Pablo, on, you know, what you think would be the ideal candidate?
Yeah, I mean, just to add for what Ryan said, I mean, I think he explained really well what we are looking on Santander. And there is something that, I mean, candidates should focus right now, not only for Santander, but if they want to apply to another company, I mean, this is not an era. This is not a change era of changes. This is a change of eras. I think that in this decade we have been evolving a lot, and that's happening in the professional market. For example, the 10 most demanded jobs of today didn't exist 6 years ago. For example, 1/3 of our current jobs requires skills that did not exist 10 years ago. And for example, there was a study of Gartner that says that 65% of children will work on jobs that does not exist yet. So I mean, that can sound a little bit frustrating, because I know that you're students and you have been studying a career, and then you can say, oh my God, so this is not going to work in a couple of years. I think that what the studies are giving you is the potential to have a better learning agility, which is right now in a frame. If I get a little bit technical about this, and you go into a framework of talent, I mean, you can divide people on there are two characteristics in people in the professional side: performance, what they are doing right now, and potential, what they can do in the future, and the complexity of things that they can do in the future about that. So what companies are valuing the most right now is potential. And one of the factors of potential that is the most important one is the learning agility, because at the end, we need to be able to learn a lot of different things on every moment of our professional life. And I think that's something really positive for young people who is starting their career, because people who haven't been that contaminated to the professional environment of years ago is developing skills to learn in a faster way than other generations. So that's what I can add about the topics.
Excellent. Well, that's the close of my. I'm now going to head over to Tyler, who has some other questions as well. So I'll pass that over to now for his questions to the panel.
First off, thank you guys so much for everything you've contributed so far. I think jumping off of that, I think something that we face as students and graduation is coming up, and we're now starting to put out our resumes. You've kind of talked about the ideal candidate and what characteristics you're looking for, but how does that get translated onto a resume, and how do we, or a CV or a cover letter, to really, one, stand apart, but also to kind of get through the different loopholes or the red tape that many people of us, I feel like, struggle with.
Well, Pablo, you will know more about the details of this than I will, but I would say, for me, when I look at a CV, I'm looking for acknowledgement, I suppose, of the transferable skills that someone has. So I don't need to find someone who's had 10 years of communications experience. I need to find someone who understands what sits below that and how they can apply what they already know today. So I suppose indicators of passion or aspiration. But Pablo will have more specifics, I'm sure.
And I mean, I think that I could talk about, like, for example, standard things of a CV, but I mean, because we are changing a lot, these factors are getting old-fashioned. And I mean, for example, I could talk about having a nice template, put your experience first, putting the dates, the exact dates of your work or of your experience, what kind of font, a clear one. But I think that those are basics right now that we are facing. So gone is the time when having a nice a template and a really good wording, what's the only thing that you needed for have an impact on your CV. And I think that right now the most important thing and the biggest challenge that I've seen in a lot of people is to tell and a really big story about yourself. I mean, at the end, when someone is reading a profile or is reading the email that someone sent to apply for a job, you are trying to read the story of that person to understand their motivations. And and you can put in a template or in a CV that you are like a responsible person, a team player. But I mean, right now, everyone on paper is a team player, is responsible. So what is most important is to put what you have done, for example, in a measured way, like, and not only in a professional way. I mean, I talk in general in your life. I mean, and especially for young people, what it is most important right now on the applications is to understand why this person wants to work with me and in this position. I mean, what is driving you in life? Because if you don't understand why are you want to do this job, or why do you want to develop in a professional way, maybe what I can think is that maybe you should give your time a little bit to think more about this. So what I will say is it's really important to understand in the letter or in the application why are you applying, what is motivating you, why do you want to work with us. And I don't say like the typical phrase of I want to work with you because you're a really big companies in a lot of markets leading the banking industry. No, like look, for example, in a specific project. Something that Santander, for example, if you're applying to Santander, something that Santander has made for a specific, in a specific way, a specific digital project. If you want to be in a digital one, if you want to be in the part of responsible banking, and a specific project that the bank has made or a company has made, and talk about it. Why do you want to work on that? And I think that's a more accurate way right now to give this this feeling or this message that you're really interested in working on that company. Because right now you're competing with a lot of people, and a lot of people is going to do the basics, that it's investigating the company and talk about facts of the company. So take it in a personal ground, because now that personal factor, it's going to be the thing that is going to change your application from others people. So I don't know if this is what you wanted to hear, or you are missing some other information.
There was just something else I thought as you were speaking about that, Pablo, which is that you don't have to have a finance background to work at a bank. I don't have a finance background. I don't think you have a finance background. No. But obviously there are some areas where it's necessary, like in finance, I would say. But I know, for instance, that in our cybersecurity teams, in our technology and operations teams, that they are actually looking at some of the transferable skills that you can develop in many other places, even before your first job. that they need those kind of the curiosity or the love of a challenge to tackle the kinds of problems that they have to face. And those digital growth areas are the areas where most companies are looking to hire. And I think it's given that there'll be people who aren't coming in with 100% of all of the knowledge they need, and companies have a responsibility to help them develop if you have the right attitude. And I think that's what you need to understand more deeply and show, as Pablo was saying, beyond the key buzzwords, because you can imagine we see those all day, every day. How do you get beyond those?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and if I want, and adding a little bit to that, I mean, this is important because nowadays, we are talking about transversal profiles. I mean, for example, I studied hospitality management, and right now I'm working on HR on a bank. So you could say like, okay, this is really weird. But for example, right now for HR profiles, of course, we are hiring people from HR, but we are also hiring other kind of profiles that were not from HR. We are hiring people, or we are looking profiles from marketing, from data analytics, and you can see that, for example, in the legal careers. I mean, yes, you have lawyers, but for example, right now, there are programs in other schools or academies. For example, the bank is sponsoring one that is called, for example, Tech for Law, because now you need to give this technological perspective to people who have studied law, for example. So if I want to add to tip, think about every experience that you can have, that you had in your life, because it can be a really good example of what you are able to do. For example, I remember one experience of someone who applied saying he was a gamer. I mean, he was someone who participated in gaming tournaments, but he took it like to a really professional way, and he was telling his experience about organizing teams, putting objectives. What has he learned of that experience? So from something that you could say it was a hobby, but he dedicated a lot to that, he was able to translate all what he was able to do, just to say, okay, you can have a good profile for this position, because again, we go back to the learning agility factor.
Absolutely. And it seems like more and more today, companies are looking at more people-based, and obviously skills are important, but it is how you're able to transfer those skills, be agile, and work on teams. And I think that's just kind of what companies are looking for. So being able to put that on a resume and a CV is really important. And I know you spoke about the internships, and you said around 700 that are currently going on, and that you guys are still recruiting for September, and then the digital profiles in October. Can you talk a little bit maybe more about the internships? What are they? Are they, we would all probably assume they're all finance or all something, but you now kind of opened up that, there is marketing and there are other aspects of these. So can you kind of tell us what the internships are and how to apply to those as well?
Yes, I think that's also a question for me. So, I mean, what I will tell you is we have a lot of, for example, we have our program that is called the Start, and it has all the profiles in the bank. And what am I talking about with profiles? For example, in the bank, we have people from finance, we have lawyers, we have business administrators, we have journalists, we have psychologists, we have a lot of profiles, because for example, you have internships on HR, on digital areas that are the most demanded one, not only in the bank, but in the general market. You have internships on communication, on social responsibility, on corporate banking, on compliance, labor relationships, law, design. I mean, designing, user experience. I mean, at the end, I think because we are a really big company, we have a lot of business department, but a lot of support departments. So this internship, for example, this program is open to all these kind of profiles. And for example, just to give you an example, I mean, we don't have internships on here, but we have people who came from a profile of a Bachelor on Arts, because we have people working, we have, for example, in the corporate center, a gallery, for example. So you even find people who works for that gallery to manage the gallery, for external events, for employees. And I mean, it's not the most popular one, but I mean, I just wanted to give you an idea of all the variety of profiles that we are looking on.
And how to apply?
Yeah.
Yes. How to apply? I mean, right now we have all these positions in our career sites, on Santander, www.santander.com. And then you can, for example, this program is called Start. No, and if you look at it, you will find the position and you can apply. Right now, all the process is open. We are going to finish that on July, so we can prepare people to start on September or October. And that's one. And then we have the other one that is Tech Up, that is more focused to digital profiles.
Excellent. We're now going to move to the section of the panel where we invite attendees to send in any questions. So if you do have anything that hasn't been asked, please feel free to drop that down in the chat or in the Q&A. While we wait for some of the questions to flood in, I have one very quick one for the two of you. You've mentioned sort of about the LGBT network before. Out of curiosity, is there one event in particular, or which event, I suppose, sticks out the most to you when you think about the LGBT network at Santander?
That we do.
Well, yeah, that's either happened in the past, either internally or with clients, etc. What is there anything that particularly stands out from the LGBT network?
Well, because at the moment we're kind of running separate programs in different countries. I'll talk about the corporate center here in Spain. I think that the highlight so far has been our participation in Pride. We joined with another sub-brand or a co-brand of Santander called Open Bank here in Spain to march in Pride together. You know, we were able to wear the Santander T-shirts and to march under that banner, which attracted a bigger group of people to the network as a whole as well. Because we're still kind of getting started, I feel like we're working towards our big kind of event that will help us gather together the internal intentions, but also to talk to other people outside and bring in outside voices to kind of learn from the outside in as well. And so we're trying to do that at the end of June here in Spain with different companies and different experts.
Excellent. Pablo, if you've had anything that particularly stuck out?
No, I think that, I mean, the most important thing now that we are working on is the one that Ryan has commented.
Excellent. We've just had a question come in from our attendees. Asked, for internships in Spain, do you need an EU work authorization, or does Santander help with sponsorship? I don't know if either of you would know about that.
Okay, so for example, if you want to do an internship in Spain with the bank, for example, in a legal way, internships are not work, so you don't need a work authorization. You need to have an student visa. and you have to be in a program, in an academic program that allows you to have an internship in Santander or in any other company you want to apply. That's first. So for internships, the bank is not doing working permits because you don't need it to do you don't need that to do an internship. But then if we go further and you say, okay, I want to work and not to do an internship at Santander, for example, and then you're going to need a work permit. So, I mean, Santander is one company that is able to sponsor this kind of permits. It was, for example, my case. I mean, I'm from Peru. I didn't have a legal permit to work in Spain, but at the end, the bank did it, and it has been doing it for other people. I mean, they were doing it because right now with this situation, everything is changing. They were doing it usually for interns that they saw that got like a really high potential, so they can join the company. But I mean, this doesn't entirely depends of the bank either, because there are a lot of regulations. For example, in my case, due to the government, it took like 5 months to get the work permit. I needed to I needed to go back to Peru to make everything fine. Uh, and again, it's going to depend also of the government, because at the end, the bank can move things to have a work permit, but the government has its own regulations, its own times, and that's the reason that I'm telling you that right now, I don't know how it's going to be, because the government is taking a lot of time to take this views. Yes, exactly. I mean, I still have my work permit in renovation, so I don't know if I will be able to go back to Spain, because right now I'm in Peru. But I mean, at the end, the bank can support for that, yes. But it doesn't depend of the bank. At the end, it depends of the government.
Excellent. And we've just had a question come through our Q&A that asks, what do you think needs to be done in the workplace to further take down barriers for minorities coming into spaces that they may not have been historically welcome in? Bit of a big question, but I don't know if either of you had any thoughts on that at all.
Well, it is a difficult one. We've been talking a little bit about this, and I think that it's making that feeling of normalization happen across any of those areas, and I think that we are trying to push a little further, maybe than we know that so that different areas or different countries might be ready to go. Because by pushing that bit further, actually, you know, overall, we can probably move things along than if we kind of aimed a little lower. And so I think that same sort of situation applies no matter what type of diversity we're talking about, but to normalize.
And had you any thoughts at all, Pablo?
No, I wouldn't add that much for what Ryan said. I mean, it's something complicated, because I don't think it's not only something in companies, but it's linked to society too. You know, it's something that the private sector and the state need to work together to work on that, because I mean, you can take a lot of initiatives inside the organization, but at the end, work is not all the entire life for a minority. It's just part of their life, because they are developing in a society. So I think that it's something that it to be, it's something that we need to work together with society too.
Excellent. I'm afraid as we get to close the hour now, I'm afraid we have to pause in questions there. I appreciate there are some questions that have just come in. For those of you who aren't aware of who we are, myGwork are an LGBT business platform with a very simple aim to put LGBT professionals and their allies and graduates that aspire to professional careers in contact with one another. Santander is a partner of ours, as are hundreds of other companies, each one with its own page on our website and their employees with profiles. And it's up to you to take the initiative to build your own online profile, connect with other professionals and aspiring professionals, seek mentors, events, news. It's entirely at your fingertips. Nonetheless, I'd like to thank everyone for coming along this afternoon. I hope you stay safe, and I'll see you all later. Bye.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you for coming along. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you.